TV7 Israel News is made possible thanks to your generous donations. Shalom and good evening. This is TV7 Israel News broadcast to you from Jerusalem. And in today's top stories, Israel turns from sorrow to relative joy as it commemorates its fallen ahead of this evening's festivities marking Israel's 76th Independence Day. British Foreign Secretary David Cameron asserts that withholding weaponry from Israel would only serve Hamas and would further make a hostage release deal less likely. The UN General Assembly votes in favor of a resolution recommending the Security Council reconsider Palestinian statehood favorably. Amidst the raging war versus the Islamist Hamas in the Gaza Strip, alongside low-intensity conflicts versus Iran and its proxies in Lebanon, Syria, Iraq, and Yemen, alongside other locations, the State of Israel is currently celebrating its 76th Independence Day. The celebrations began after 24 hours of sorrow in which the people of Israel commemorated their fallen, with somber ceremonies predominantly focused on the heavy losses of both civilians and IDF soldiers who were murdered by the Islamist Hamas and its terror affiliates during the October 7th massacre and the ensuing war.
Since the beginning of the current war, which began with the terrible massacre, we knew countless acts of sacrifice, stories of heroism, and displays of mutual commitment that will be remembered for generations amongst the ranks of IDF units, emergency units, Israel Police, the Israel Security Agency, the fire, rescue, and medical forces, and among ordinary citizens. All of them came out with the courage to defend the homes of all of us. The National House stands, the state stands, and it stands because of them. But at the same time, the sorrow is terrible and heartbreaking.
Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, during the main state commemoration ceremony at the military cemetery on Mount Herzl, further asserted that while the, quote, price we pay, the price paid by the generations before us, this price is very heavy, with God's help, Israel will emerge victorious.
Our loved ones who fell in the battle, and all of Israel's military campaigns, the campaign of revival, they represent eternal values, love of man and nation, love of the country, willingness to sacrifice, and faith in the righteousness of our path. The war is exactly about that. It is either us, Israel, or they the monsters of Hamas. Either existence, liberty, security, and prosperity, or torture, massacre, rape, and slavery. We are determined to win this fight. We have exacted and will exact a heavy price from the enemy for its criminal acts. We will realize the goals of victory, and at the center of them is the return of all the hostages home, a victory that, with God's help, will ensure our existence and our future. But the price we pay, the price paid by the generations before us, this price is very heavy.
The IDF continues to fight vigorously versus Iran's tentacles on all fronts, with chief focus on the Gaza Strip.
IDF forces continue to fight in all parts of the Gaza Strip, in areas where we have not yet operated and in places where we have identified Hamas trying to recover and rebuild itself. In northern Gaza, in the last hour, fighter jets have been striking terrorist targets across Jabaliyah. This morning we began a temporary evacuation process of the Jabaliyah area from this area towards the center of the Strip as part of our preparation for a military operation in the area. In recent weeks, we have identified attempts by Hamas to restore its military capabilities in Jabalia, and we are working to dismantle these attempts. In the afternoon, troops from the Gaza Division began an operation against terrorist infrastructure in the Beit Hanan and Beit Lahia areas near the security fence. In the central Gaza Strip, troops from the 99th Division are in the midst of a wide-scale operation in the Zaytown area. The troops eliminated about 30 terrorists and located dozens of weapons in a school in the area. They are continuing operations there. In recent hours, they discovered a significant underground route through which terrorists plan to carry out an attack against our forces. In the southern strip, the 162nd Division forces continue their offensive operation on terrorist targets in eastern Rafah. This is a focused, intelligence-based operation against terror infrastructure in the area.
While under mounting pressure from the Biden administration, Israel continues to operate against large pockets of terror in the town of Rafah, which is the last organized Hamas stronghold in the Gaza Strip.
So far, we have eliminated dozens of terrorists in eastern Rafah, found a significant underground route, and seized many weapons. This morning we coordinated the temporary evacuation of the population in additional areas in eastern Rafah, adjacent to the combat zone. Hamas will continue to try to rebuild its military capabilities, and we will continue to be required to act and dismantle Hamas capabilities. Wherever we have intelligence on such attempts by Hamas, we will act again.
While Israel remains determined to eliminate Hamas, a requirement which demands a broad ground operation in the town of Rafah, U.S. National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan, in an exclusive interview to ABC, defended the Biden administration's continued opposition to a wide-scale operation in Rafah.
Well, first, because there's 1 million people there in very close quarters who've been pushed there because of the military operations in other parts of Gaza, you would have really significant civilian casualties. And while Israel would also be able to kill some Hamas folks, many Hamas folks would melt away because they're terrorists. They're not really organized fighters in the way that we think about a typical military. In that context, he doesn't want to see American weapons used in that kind of operation. That's not to say that he is going to abandon Israel or cut them off from weapons. He was focused on a particular operation that he doesn't believe will succeed in defeating Hamas and that will cause grievous harm.
In contrast to Washington's intention to postpone shipments of weaponry to Israel over its intention to launch a decisive offensive against Hamas, British Foreign Secretary David Cameron, in an interview to the BBC, insisted that such a move would strengthen Hamas, it would make a hostage deal less likely, and it would send a wrong signal to Western adversaries at large.
There was a brutal attack by Iran on Israel, including 140 cruise missiles. So it's not sort of, tiny drones, huge cruise missiles blasting into Israel. And I think it would have sent entirely the wrong message. It would have been a very unwise move. So, as we stand here today, I think there is a better answer, which is, Hamas must take the hostage deal. You get the pause in the fighting. You build a ceasefire out of that. But I think actually, just to simply announce today we're going to change our whole approach to arms exports rather than go through our careful process, it would strengthen Hamas, it would make a hostage deal less likely. I don't think it would be the right approach.
Meanwhile, on Israel's northern front, the Lebanese-Iranian proxy Hezbollah continues to wage war against Israel, a battle intensity which Israeli security officials continue to label under a full-scale threshold.
Today, we also struck in southern Lebanon, continuing the strikes carried out over the past week from the air and land. In the strikes, we targeted more than 120 Hezbollah targets, involving weapons storage facilities, Hezbollah positions in southern Lebanon that were planned to be used against our civilians near the fence and near the border. During these strikes, we eliminated more than 10 terrorists. Last night, after several of our strikes in Lebanon and the elimination of 2 terrorists, launches from Hezbollah resulted in a fire near Kiryat Shmona and damage in several spots in the city. In response, the IDF struck the areas from which the launch was fired and the forces that carried out the launch.
Turning to the United Nations headquarters in New York, where the UN General Assembly voted overwhelmingly in favor of promoting the Palestinian bid for statehood, which was proposed by the United Arab Emirates and presented by Algeria.
The result of the vote is as follows. In favor, 143. Against, 9. Abstentions, 25. Draft Resolution A/ES10/L30/Rev1 is adopted.
143 nations, including China, Russia, Iran, France, Australia, Spain, Ireland, and Denmark, among others, voted in favor of the resolution, recommending the UN Security Council reconsider the matter of Palestinian statehood favorably.
The Islamic Republic of Iran acknowledged and supports the General Assembly decision today. The decision represents a modest yet crucial step in fulfilling the international community's obligation toward the people of Palestine and restoring some of Palestinians' inherent rights. Palestine has demonstrated its commitment to peace and its ability to fulfill the obligation on the UN Charter. Consequently, it deserves full membership in the United Nations.
9 nations, including the United States, Israel, the Czech Republic, Papua New Guinea, Hungary, Argentina, Nauru, Palau, and Micronesia, voted against the resolution, which essentially sought to circumvent Israel, the fundamental characterization of a state by the UN Charter, and reality on the ground altogether.
President Biden has been clear that sustainable peace in the region can be achieved only through a two-state solution, with Israel's security guaranteed, where Israelis and Palestinians can live side by side with equal measures of freedom and dignity. It remains the U.S. view that unilateral measures at the UN and on the ground will not advance this goal. This General Assembly resolution was no exception, and so the United States voted no. Our vote does not reflect opposition to Palestinian statehood. We have been very clear that we support it and seek to advance it meaningfully. Instead, it is an acknowledgement that statehood will come only from a process that involves direct negotiations between the parties.
Alongside the U.S. objection to the Palestinian bid, the majority of European nations actually abstained at the vote.
Unfortunately, today's vote in the General Assembly will not be able to create a viable Palestinian state, nor will it make peace. If immediate full membership ended all the suffering we are witnessing, we would have today wholeheartedly voted yes. Only direct negotiations between Israelis and Palestinians will lead to sustainable peace in the Middle East and to a two-state reality. And this is why we have abstained today.
We're abstaining on this resolution because we believe that the first step towards achieving this goal is resolving the immediate crisis in Gaza. The fastest way to end the conflict is to secure a deal which gets the hostages out and allows for a pause in the fighting in Gaza. We must then work together to turn that pause into a sustainable, permanent ceasefire.
While the Palestinian envoy to the world body sought to demonize Israel at the UN General Assembly plenum, Israel's ambassador Gilad Erdan accused the United Nations of essentially promoting support for genocidal jihadists to establish an Islamic state across Israel and throughout the region.
You have opened up the United Nations to modern-day Nazis, to genocidal jihadists committed to establishing an Islamic state across Israel and the region, murdering every Jewish man, woman, and child. It makes me sick. Sick.
Thank you for watching TV7 Israel News. I would like to encourage you, pray for the peace of Jerusalem and salvation of Israel. Moreover, if you're blessed by our productions, which are exclusively donation-based, as such broadcast free of charge, please consider making a donation. you can do so via our website at www.tv7israelnews.com. I'm Jonathan Essen, wishing you a Shavuot Tov u'Mevorach, and God willing, we'll see you during our next update. Until then, Shalom from Jerusalem.